don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter. Huh. 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 That's right. Welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. We're ready to go for episode number 4. And it looks like today, if you're a baseball fan, looking for as much baseball as possible, not looking good for you tomorrow.
No, that's too bad. But with respect of the debate last night, Chap, let's let it fly.
Yeah. And one of the things I was thinking about when I saw that fly land on Mike Pence's head is, if you're bald like you are, if you're bald like I am, you don't have to worry about a fly landing on your head and not knowing about it. I was wondering if Kamala Harris is going to say something to him, but she obviously didn't. But if something lands on our heads, Dennis, we can just swat it off, we'll know, and we can keep on rolling with it.
Well, I don't know anybody that likes flies. There are a lot of jokes and certainly a lot of posts about that, but it reminded me of my second favorite show of all time, Breaking Bad. I don't know what hundreds of episodes that they had. There was only one episode that I didn't like. It was the fly episode. Mm-hmm. All the other 99% of the other one, all of the other ones. So 99.9% of the shows were great, except the fly one. So that's what I was thinking of last night.
What happened in that? I've only seen one episode of that show.
I think they both smoke some crystal meth, and so they were just like tripping out and just like watching this fly the whole night. Yeah. Down in the basement of the chicken restaurant. That's what I remember about it. But I remember I didn't like it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like compelling television. We'll try to give you 5 fantastic chapters and be compelling. By the way, our good friend G. Mac Cash, as you might have expected, put out a new song called Fly, and it's about the fly on Mike Pence's head. So if you want to check that out, you can check it out on YouTube. And of course, I'd recommend getting his new album, The MacBook. It's got songs like Big Gretch. It's got songs like Big Mac and others that you might have heard in the past. As for today's show, definitely want to thank those who are watching via YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch, and those who are listening to the podcast via Apple, Google, and Spotify. We've got close to 600 total podcast downloads, so thank you to those who are listening to the podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your comments via Facebook, via YouTube, and via Twitch. Dennis will be monitoring all 3 streams and reading your feedback throughout the show. Let's take a look at today's book. In the second chapter, the Lions are not going to lose this week because they have a bye week. We all know that Lions fans want Quinn and Patricia fired. Assuming that can't happen, we'll give you a couple of goals we'd like the Lions to accomplish during their bye week. In the third chapter, we've got more college football, even though the Big Ten isn't playing. Several college football teams in the top 10 are playing, and they could be on upset alert. We'll tell you which teams should be on upset alert. In the fourth chapter, the coronavirus and not the coronavirus. You got some one-loss teams and some one-win-loss teams that we think could have a big 180. We'll tell you which teams those are. And then in the fifth chapter, we mentioned Mike Pence, but what about his boss? And what about one of his boss's arch enemies? Because his boss, President Trump, has been dealing with the Rona, putting the second and third debates up in the air. And one of his arch enemies, Big Gretch, was saved from a kidnapping attempt. Wild details. We'll give you some of that later on in the show in the fifth chapter. But Dennis, let's start off with the first chapter. And that takes us to the NFL, where we're starting with the coronavirus pandemic in the NFL. Yesterday, 2 more individuals in the Titans organization tested positive for coronavirus, and then another tested positive today. That brings their total to 23 in less than 2 weeks. After having last week's game postponed, this week's game against the Bills is in serious jeopardy. They have a major outbreak, the biggest outbreak in the NFL, and it rivals what we saw with the Marlins and the Cardinals in baseball. In the rest of the league, there have been a couple of more positive tests. On Saturday, Cam Newton of the Patriots tested positive, as did a Chiefs practice squad player. They had to have their game moved to Monday. Yesterday, another Patriot, Stephon Gilmore, tested positive, and we found out that a Patriots practice squad player tested positive, as well as finding out that Raiders defensive tackle and former Michigan Wolverine Maurice Hurst were placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. There was also a report that came out yesterday saying that the Titans broke NFL rules by holding a workout last Wednesday when they were supposed to be quarantining, and that workout was one day after the NFL told the Titans that they were not allowed to work out. So, Dennis, what do you make of these positive tests around the NFL, especially on the Tennessee Titans?
Well, it makes me feel like we're back in June and July talking about the COVID and canceling games and all that. Shouldn't be much of a surprise that Mike Vrabel was out there in holding illegal practices against COVID. If you look to his alma mater there, Ohio State, when the Big Ten was going through some of their before they were even allowed to practice, you weren't allowed contact with the coaches, and they were out there with tackling dummies, and there were pictures of the coaches, within 6 feet of them. And, they just went out there and broke the rules. And they told everybody, like, hey, you should have been out there breaking the COVID rules, too. So, look, these guys, they should be fined and they should have picks taken away. I don't want to see games forfeited. Nobody wants to see that. It looks like they're moving that Bills game now to Tuesday.
Are they?
And, yeah, that's what I saw right before we came on. And then so they're going to have to adjust the game on Thursday as well, because I think the Bills are supposed to come back and play the Chiefs on Thursday. So obviously that's not going to happen. So, yeah, look, we knew that there was a chance that they're going to have to move a bunch of things around here. I think they also have to start looking at end of season possibilities if they can't work things out with a bye week. Put an extra bye week there at the end, and then get rid of the bye week before the Super Bowl. Make that 1 week, and be prepared to have that be one of the last chances for you to be able to make up a game if possible. So, you know what? The one thing about it is I don't mind 2 games on Monday night. I don't mind a game on Tuesday. I don't mind a game on Thursday. I mean, they can move these all around. It's a pandemic. We get all of that. But you know what? If you're going to break the protocols when they have all this out there, it's like, hey, why don't you guys go do it? You should have to pay the price some way, but not forfeiting the game.
Yeah, I liked your idea about putting an extra bye week into the season, because it really isn't necessary to have a bye week before the Super Bowl. All it does is just kind of ramp up hype, and then you have that silly little week before the Super Bowl where fans are thinking, well, there's nothing going on, and they have to kind of buy time with media day, and I'm just here so I don't get fined. They could obviously, like you mentioned, just push all the playoff games or all the playoff weeks aside from the Super Bowl back to do that, because I mean, if you look at where we are right now, we're on pace to have at least 1 or 2 teams, perhaps more than that, finish with just 15 games played. And I think that on the, as we continue on through the season, we're probably going to have that, because think about the Lions and think about the Steelers and the Titans and the Packers. The Lions and the Packers have a bye week right now. That means if they have a coronavirus outbreak 2 weeks or 2 months from now, then they're just going to be having played less than 16 games. If they put that extra week at the end, perhaps they could have that as a makeup. I think that's a good idea. I think when you look at punishments for the Tennessee Titans, I don't know about a forfeit. I don't think that's a good idea, but certainly forfeiting draft picks, certainly getting fined, and in particular, fining and suspending the players who participated in those workouts last week when they were not supposed to. I don't know if everybody was there. I don't know if it was an official team event. I believe it was just something that was kind of off the radar. But everybody that they can confirm that was at that event should be fined and suspended, which means the next time the Tennessee Titans play, you might have to see a whole bunch of practice squad players play. But that should be the punishment, because we're in a pandemic and the league is trying to do whatever it can to ensure that these guys are getting paid, to ensure that the fans get the game. And when you know that you have an outbreak on the team, and then you knowingly break the rules so that you can practice and get ready for the next game, you put yourself at jeopardy of getting sick, your coaches, you put your community at risk of getting sick because you're not in a bubble, and you put the entire season on the brink of collapse. So they should be punished individually and as an organization.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And you know what? Wasn't Darius Slay? I didn't see his exact comments, but he was wondering if the league was putting the players' health in jeopardy here. And if you don't follow the protocols, yeah. Uncomfortable yourself, opt out. Leave the money on the table. Nobody's going to blame you. Everybody gets that. Your health, pretty what's going around you. Hand in, opt out. No Eagle fan should be upset. Nobody should be upset at all at Darius Slay.
Well, and here's exactly what he had to say. These quotes actually came from yesterday. We can play Sunday. We continue to keep knocking on wood. We haven't had a sickness here yet, so we'll continue to keep trying to find a way. And this is interesting. ESPN.com, after he finished answering feelings that he's comfortable with playing once COVID-19 safety protocols in place. So, one of my thoughts is, did he actually clarify, or was it a team official telling him, hey, come on now, we need to stay on the company line, go back out there and say you feel more comfortable? Now, I would assume that that's not the case, but it's interesting that he would make that quick clarification.
Yeah, I have the addendum on the final thing that Slay said in there, and he said, and Matt Patricia's a jackass, and if I was playing with Detroit, all of us would probably be suspended because he doesn't care anything about the players.
Yeah. No, it's certainly a mess right now, and you have to also consider the fact that you got a couple of other teams that have positive tests right now. You got actually 3 on the Patriots, so I think that's a team to watch. You got the practice squad player, you got Stephon Gilmore, and you got Cam Newton.
Yeah, do it, man. You can't do anything about the incubation period. I mean, that's the one part about it. So,
yeah,
the rapid testing's great. I know a lot of people want to see them get tested on game day, but
yes,
yeah, you're one of those, right? I get why they don't do it. You get into you have your plan, you show up, you get a positive test, you don't have a chance to have a false positive check or anything like that, and then it could blow the whole Sunday up. But it would be safer. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I completely get that too. You certainly wouldn't want your star wide receiver, your star left tackle, your star cornerback going out. But what's worse, having one game without finding out that it's a false positive test, or somebody has to test positive on game, they don't sit in bed, and while that person could be quarantining, instead he's spreading Rona around to the staff, and he's spreading Rona around to the other team, where they can take that back to their home destination and spread it around their community. I think that's one of the issues with the whole tight situation. They did not test in game day. They had one coach test the day before the game, and then they didn't test until the day after the game, and that's when they had 5 people test positive. Those would have tested positive on game day.
Yes, someone can say, hey, we're not doing everything else even on game day, so there's a possibility there. All right, Chap, you ready to move on?
We have some feedback, or do you want to go straight to the second chapter?
We have Keith that says, what's up? The Tennessee-Buffalo game has been rescheduled for Tuesday. It's a joke how those players on the Titans, how they have acted. DJ Majors talking about, yo, you're frozen. But then he's like, are the Yankees going to stop me from catching the 5th chapter? No.
There you
know
go.
what? I shouldn't have fired back at him and said the Yankees are done, because I thought he was asking the question, and actually he was saying something nice there. And I kind of fired back. I know he's a Yankees fan, saying he was done, so that was kind of a bad move on my part.
Uh-oh, looks like we've got a third member of the Fifth Chapter trying to get in.
Yeah, that's Louie, my German Shepherd. I don't know, he's barking at something. My wife is home.
Hopefully it's not a Buckeye. All right, Dennis, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
Yeah, and that's me, and that gets us to the Lions. I want everybody to still keep watching here. We won't spend 10 minutes on the Lions. It's going to be a quick chapter. They do have the bye week. The bye week's favored by 7. The bye week will probably beat them.
Yes.
All of those jokes. But what are really a thing or two that the Lions can do during the bye week that they can put down as an accomplishment?
Yeah, and obviously that's aside from firing Quinn and Patricia, because we know that's the easy answer. We know that's the answer that just about every fan wants. If they could fire Quinn and Patricia, all fans would be happy. I think that would give Sheila Ford Happ a 100% approval rating, or at least boost it up. I'll give you my first, and that is to get these rookies more involved and performing better. Obviously, they didn't have a full offseason program to do mini camps, to do film study with their teammates in the same room, but that hasn't stopped Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert from hitting the ground running. That hasn't stopped Justin Jefferson from looking like he could be a Pro Bowler maybe as soon as this year. That hasn't stopped Antoine Winfield, Chase Young, CeeDee Lamb, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all these other guys. Jonathan Taylor, exactly. But you look at these Lions rookies, Jeff Okudah, drafted 3rd overall, and he suddenly has lost all of his athleticism. Somebody makes a juke move on him, and both of his ankles break and his knees break, and he just stands there and looks. He can't tackle. He can't cover. He looks like he's regressed significantly from that star at Ohio State to a guy who would struggle to make the practice squad at Eastern Michigan. No offense, Dennis. You look at DeAndre Swift, and he can't beat out a senior citizen or an injured third-year running back for the number 1 job. He can't get 15 carries per game. A lot of fans hated that Jeff Okudah pick, but they loved the DeAndre Swift pick, and they said, hey, you know what? Bob Quinn is back in my good graces because of it. How come all of a sudden he's getting hardly any reps? Julian Okwara doesn't play. Quintez Cephas, 3 catches in the first game, looks promising. 3 in the next game looks promising. 0 in the 3rd and the 4th games, and that can't all be because of the return of Kenny Golladay. I think they need to get those rookies more involved, and those that are involved need to start playing better, because there really isn't any explanation for Jeff Okudah and DeAndre Swift to have just lost it.
No, not unless they hate the coach or have got something going on outside of football. But man, hey, those guys. It feels like if Okudah got picked by the Jaguars, he'd be out there starring, and if DeAndre Swift was picked by the Chiefs, he'd be out there rolling up the yards. And if the Lions picked Edwards-Helaire, he'd be a bust. I mean, that's the way things have gone for them. I think that they could heal up in the secondary. That's been an issue. Maybe not have Okudah out there. He looks like, the game's above his head right now. So you can bring him along a little bit slower. There's not a lot here. I mean, the defense has been terrible. They could look at the tape of the Arizona game. There were some positives there, but the other 3 games, if they're going over their tape, it stinks. So they got to get healthier and try to get the guys that don't deserve to be out there not out there. And I don't know. I think Kerryon Johnson, when you come back from the injury, he was wearing that big, brace on his leg here. And, if you don't have the confidence, that can be one thing. So trying to work on getting him his confidence. But DeAndre Swift's another one. He did get a touchdown last week, but you know what? They spent 2 of the last 3 years a 2nd-round pick and a running back, and they both look like, if you had to say right now, under. They're
backups. They're backups to a 35-year-old. I mean, that's all you got to say. And I think a lot of Lions fans would say, hey, if Kerryon Johnson's healthy, could he be a 100-yard a game back, or at least have a couple 100-yard games by 4 games in? He doesn't have a 50-yard game. Same thing with DeAndre Swift. He doesn't have a 50-yard game. I think they've peaked with what's his face? Adrian Peterson had 90 or so yards in the first game or second game of the year. But I mean, these fresher, you would think healthier, particularly DeAndre Swift, healthier running backs, although he did have a hamstring injury that made him questionable for the first game. I mean, he can't get 15 carries a game. he can't get that over Adrian Peterson? That's shameful.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that happens throughout the years with the Lions that makes you feel like when people say the organization is cursed, you say, no, it's just the Fords or the specific GMs. But, they drafted Kyle Van Noy in the second round, and he came in, and he looked like a bust here. He really did. I was really high on him coming out of BYU, but an absolute bust. So, they ended up trading him to the Pats, and he goes out there, and he's awesome. So, I don't It's the Detroit Lions. It's the organization, man. Some organizations to bring guys in, it's like, oh, man, these guys are great. You didn't see this coming. Lions are the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm. They look great, then they come to the Lions and they get destroyed. One of my least favorite to mention in that category is former Penn State receiver Derek Williams. I mean, he was great as a returner. He was great as a receiver at Penn State. And he got drafted by the Lions and forgot how to catch the football. Like, Eric Ebron had better hands than Derek Williams when he got there, and he was instantly a bust. But the second goal that I think the Lions should accomplish during their bye week is find a way to keep that momentum from the first quarter going into the final three quarters. They've had all these double-digit leads in the first quarter. Sometimes it takes until the second half, but usually it's 14 points on the first two drives, and then it's blown. The offense is rolling to start the games. The defense is forcing punts, or in the last game, they forced an interception on the first pass attempt by Drew Brees. And so obviously, offensively, they're doing a good job of scripting. Then when the opponent has a chance to evaluate and adjust without the ability of without a rocket scientist behind the helmet, without a pencil in their ear, it's over for the Lions because they evaluate, they adjust, and they outsmart the rocket scientist. He's got to use that Ticonderoga number 2 and figure it out, and perhaps maybe have a second game plan. Maybe the first quarter, do what they have been doing, and then in the second quarter, completely switch everything up. Maybe if they were going 2 or 3 wide receivers, second quarter you start it with 5 wide receiver sets because they're never going to assume that's going to happen. If they've been, blitzing 20% of the time, starting in the second quarter, blitz 70% of the time, because just sticking with the formula has led to being figured out by the start of the second quarter and getting crushed the remainder of the game.
Yeah, it's really despair. Just listening to you there. I know Patricia, it doesn't matter if he takes over the play calling or what they do. If he just throws up his hands, good luck, man. There's no answers for the defense. I think the offense might be able to do some things. Keith says, I hate the Lions. They should just not play any more games this year. Just say all the players have COVID. They never have a plan or direction, just like the president. Okay, so, yeah, there you go, Keith. We get it, man. That's good, man. It's making having indigestion talking about the Lions.
Yeah, I think that's the case for a lot of Detroit Lions fans. You talk about them, you won't get it. And I'll say this. Because the Lions aren't playing, I think that throughout Metro Detroit, blood pressure levels are going to go way down on Sunday. As compared to a typical weekend, and fewer heart attacks and strokes. When I dumped the Lions, what happened to me is I realized that Sunday from 4 p.m. until I went to sleep, I felt so much better because I wasn't so depressed and angry about them losing. So I think Lions fans will have a very happy Sunday the 11th.
Yeah, and somebody, that's Chapman here on the right, and that's me on the left. As you take a look at that little picture with the bags over our heads.
Yeah, all right, Dennis, let's turn the page to the third chapter, and that takes us to college football. We're still 16 days away from the return of Big Ten football, and that includes an opening weekend slate of Michigan at Minnesota, Rutgers at Michigan State, and Penn State at Indiana. Until then, we've got some other college football action this weekend, including some top 10 teams that could be on upset alert. You got Florida, number 4, traveling to number 21, Texas A&M. You got number 19, Virginia Tech, traveling to number 8, UNC. You got
upset. I would put UNC on upset alert.
Okay. You got number 14, Tennessee, traveling to number 3, Georgia. And you've got number 7, Miami, traveling to number 1, Clemson. Number 2, Alabama travels to unranked Ole Miss. And unranked Florida State, traveling to number 5, Notre Dame. You already mentioned one, but what do you think is the top 10 team that has a chance to be upset?
Well, obviously, Miami's going to go down. They'll lose to Clemson. They technically are in the top 10, so we know they're going to go down for sure. I do think UNC, that's a game that they just slid by last week. This could be one. That would be, I think, everybody's pick. And we're ready to find out if Tennessee is for real. I mean, the Georgia defense looks for real.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And they look like they found a quarterback. Tennessee's won all these SEC games in a row. Can they even make a really strong showing? I know Tennessee fans want to win that. That would be the other one that I would at least look at, because Tennessee in week 1 looked a little shaky. So I'd put Georgia on upset alert too.
Yeah, I think after what they did to Auburn, what they were able to do in the trenches in particular, just bullying around Auburn, I think the Georgia's a safe bet to win. Like you mentioned, Miami's in the top 10, but they're not on upset alert because they're going to be, I don't know what the line is, but they have to be a significant underdog. It's Texas A&M, they're just a fraud. They're no good. They're going to get smashed by Florida, even though it's a home game. And Ole Miss has no chance against Bama. That Virginia Tech North Carolina game is the one that I have circled too. There are going to be about 3,600 fans in attendance for North Carolina, so that'll give them a little bit of a home field advantage. But neither of these teams are world beaters. I saw that Virginia Tech, they beat North Carolina State, and they only edged Duke 38-31. Not impressive, but North Carolina, I think they're overrated. They only beat Boston College by 4 because Boston College needed a 2-point conversion to tie, and they turned it over, and the 2-point conversion was returned to the other end zone for 2 points. So that game could have gone to overtime, and we could be talking about North Carolina being ranked lower than Virginia Tech had it not been for that particular outcome. But I look at Virginia Tech beating Duke by a touchdown, and I looked a little bit deeper into it, and I saw that they played that game missing 3 coaches and missing 23 players due to coronavirus. So I'm sure that it wasn't 23 starters, but whether it's starters or depth, certainly missing the coaches, that hurts, and that probably made that game closer than it should have been. It looks like they're going to get their quarterback Hendon Hooker back from the coronavirus list, and so I look at Virginia Tech as well as having the best opportunity to upset. They apparently have one of the best pass rushes in the ACC in the country as well. I like that one as well.
Yeah, that's the game I'm going to be watching for sure. You got all 3. This is the best Saturday. It seems like it's been increasing as we go by here, and you already mentioned coming up when the Big Ten starts, and it's really going to amp up, especially around here. But this is the best slate so far. All 3 windows there, a lot of games, a lot of interest there. So best Saturday so far, the college football season on tap.
Yeah, I think when you look at Miami and Clemson, I saw that the last 2 times they played, Clemson's won by a combined 96-3, and everybody's always asking, is Miami back? Just like they ask, is Michigan back? Is Texas back? Is Florida State back? And, I don't think that the bar for Miami is to go out and beat Clemson. Obviously, if they beat Clemson, the answer is yes. But can you keep it more respectable than an average score of 48 to 1.5? If it can stay within a touchdown or 2, then that suggests that they're back. And I think that Florida State is really in moral victory category as well when they go to Notre Dame. Can they keep it, within a couple of touchdowns as opposed to, what happened when they played Miami, losing 52-10?
Yeah, I'm not going to say Michigan's back if they beat Minnesota, but if they just keep going down that schedule there, I think they'll beat State, then Indiana, then they do have Wisconsin, and and that Thanksgiving weekend they'll play Penn State. If they go out there and take care of Penn State, what's that going to put them at 6-0?
Well, that's in Ann Arbor.
If they can go out there and beat Penn State, I would go ahead and say that they'd be back at that point.
Yeah, although a lot of Michigan fans will say, well, why don't we wait to see what they do against Ohio State?
Good argument.
Yeah.
Good point. Valid point.
We have some feedback, or are we going to get to the 4th chapter?
Keith wants to know where Greg is. I see my cousin from Florida, down from Florida, is watching here. It's good to see her. That's the feedback right now. So let's get to the next chapter.
Yep, don't be afraid to send in your feedback via Facebook, via YouTube, and via Twitch. The next chapter takes us to the 4th chapter, and you've got a lot of teams, right? I mean, every single week is big in the NFL. Teams are always constantly trying to turn their seasons around. But you look at, there are a bunch of one-win teams in the NFL, and a bunch of one-loss teams that I guess are trying to to not turn their seasons around, keep momentum going in the right direction, right?
Yeah, that's right. When you look at it, you start out in the AFC. You got the Dolphins. These are the teams that just have one win. You got the Dolphins, the Bengals, who had the worst record in the league last year. The Jags, Chargers, and Broncos. That's all in the AFC. When you go over to the NFC, the entire East has one win. Besides the Giants, they don't have any. Wow. Talk about the NFC least. So we'll start there with just those one team. So you identify at least one team, Chap, out of all those that have just been mentioned that you think can turn things around, or do you have more?
Well, we've also got the Vikings and the Lions. But I would say the one team I think has the best chance to turn it around and make the playoffs, because I think turning around doesn't mean going 7-9. I'm going to say make the playoffs, even if they sneak in as a 7 seed, would be the Chargers. They are on a 3-game losing streak, which doesn't help my argument, but all these teams are 1-3 outside of, I think, the Bengals that are 1-2-1. But their 3 losses are all by one possession, and their 3 losses are to the Super Bowl champion Chiefs, the Panthers, who have moved up to 500 after winning their last 2 games, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady and company. None of those teams has a losing record. And it seems like they've found something with Justin Herbert, who is ready sooner than expected. A lot of folks last year were saying, oh, Herbert has fallen off. He's certainly not going to be a top 5 or a top 10 pick. Is he even going to be a first rounder? The Chargers like what they have out of him, and they earlier today named him the starter for the remainder of the season. So that's a big step forward for him. They have a sound running game if Eckler is healthy. I know he got hurt in the last game. And they have a very good defense, even though they gave up 38 points last week to Tampa Bay. And their schedule is about to soften. As opposed to playing the Chiefs, the Panthers, and the Bucs, none of their next 6 opponents have a winning record. So I could see them going 4-2 or better in those games before Thanksgiving weekend. And if they go 4-2, then all of a sudden they're 5-5 with 6 games to go, and they're right there in the playoff picture. If they go 5-1, then all of a sudden they're at 6-4, and they're in the driver's seat to make the playoffs. I think because of the schedule, because Herbert's going to be feeling more comfortable as the season goes along, they are the one-win team that has the best chance to turn it around and make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I agree. I've put the Chargers and the Cowboys in that category. I know, Dallas has lost some heartbreakers. Their offense has been putting up tons of points. Their defense, man, they got to figure that out. But considering they play in a division that has a bunch of other one-win teams and the 0 Giants, seeing them turn things around and actually make the playoffs is very doable for them. A lot of that is going to be because of where they reside. And, yeah, the Chargers with Herbert, they named him the starter for the rest of the year, as they should. Eckler looks like he's going to be out for at least a month. But the kid they picked up from UCLA, Joshua Kelly, get your fingers crossed on him. If he can provide anything there, that offense should be okay.
Have the Cowboys played a divisional game yet?
Let's see.
Because their one win was against the Falcons.
I don't
think they have, because the Eagles, Washington, FT, and the Giants haven't beaten them. So, yeah, they haven't played a division. That was a good pick by you, because, I mean, as bad as the division looks, I think the Cowboys certainly could turn it around. But to make the playoffs, they might only need to win 5 or 6 more games to get to 6 or 7 wins.
All right, well, let's look at all of those teams that just have one loss, and we see them going the other way. Keith, though, mentions before we go that the Cowboys are so loaded offensively. If they just could get off to a really good start offensively, then they could just outscore you. Their defense is so bad. Yeah, you know what? CeeDee Lamb looks awesome, but, yeah, the defense, they lost Van Der Esch, and you just go through there, man. They the other teams they can't stop the run or the pass. That's a bad combination for them.
No. That's like a Lions combination.
Yeah, that is. That's very Lion-esque. Let's look at those teams that just have one loss. Let's see if I get them all right here. We got the Ravens and Browns, and then we have the Colts and the Bears and Bucks, who are playing tonight on Thursday Night Football, and the Rams.
That's right. You got all 6 of them. I would say that, and I mean, I don't know if this is going to be a consensus with everybody,
Bears.
but I think the team, yes, they're the best team that has a chance, or the team that has the best chance of turning it around. and having a losing season for two reasons. First, they just switched their quarterback from Trubisky to Foles, and that led to a season-low 11 points against the Colts. So I'm not saying that Trubisky is way better. I think he probably is better overall because Foles has proven just to be a playoff quarterback. Not that great with the Eagles and certainly not that great with the Jaguars. But and Trubisky showed against the Lions, and he showed 2 years ago that he has at least Pro Bowl potential because he made the Pro Bowl 2 years ago. But switching your quarterback early on in the season, not a good look, and then putting up 11 points. And then secondly, who did they beat in their first 3 games? The same old Lions. Yes, that's right.
Giants.
That's right. They beat the Giants.
Falcons.
And the Falcons, correct. And those teams have combined to win one game, and that one win was on a last-second field goal when the Lions beat the Cardinals. They don't play another team that currently has a losing record until mid-November. So that means the Bears could lose their next 4 or 5 games in a row. I think they're the team that has the best chance to turn it around in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I could totally agree on that. I think the Bears are frauds. The other one that I would look at, and their defense is ranked number 1 here after the quarter poll, so that bodes well for them. And they also have the best offensive line in the NFL, which is also really good, and a thing that you'd want going for them. But Phillip Rivers, man, he just he's lost it, and I see the Colts not being a playoff team. I don't see them, if they were to get there, be able to do anything. Phillip Rivers just doesn't have it. I mean, he didn't have it last year with the Chargers, and then watching him last week is like, a lot of those passes, he doesn't have the zip anymore, and I don't think he makes it through the entire season. I think he's washed, and I think the Colts have a chance, even though their defense and that offensive line, to go the other way. They still got Jacoby Brissett there as a backup, so maybe he comes in. That would be the prediction. Jacoby Brissett comes in.
And, so you think midway through the season they bench Rivers?
I think Rivers will get benched. There's your take for you.
And
by the midpoint.
I thought it was a very questionable signing, to say the least, because he signed like a 2-year contract when he came from LA/San Diego, and we could see last year that he was losing his arm strength. So if halfway through the first year of his 2-year deal he's benched, that looked pretty bad for the Colts.
Yeah, I agree. That was a bad signing. I don't know what they were doing to begin with. They've got a good team. The only thing they needed is a quarterback. I guess they thought with a great offensive line that he could stand back there and, do his thing. But he does not look like he's going to be able to do his thing.
Yeah, they're signing his past when his present is what's going to actually show up on the field on Sundays.
Keith says, I agree about the Bears. They are no good. They should have lost to the Lions. That's really all you need to say, Keith. And he says, what the hell happened to their defense? Well, their defense has lost a few pieces, and their defense has been all right. It's just, they didn't give up that many points to the Colts. It's just they've got one player on offense, and that's Allen Robinson. Who else?
From where?
From the Bears on offense.
No. Where's Allen Robinson from?
He is from here.
From Penn State.
He's from Country Day, isn't he?
No, he's from Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Oh, okay.
But he went to Penn State, and as you can see, I'm pointing at a Penn State number 8 jersey. What jersey did he wear at We Are Penn State? Number 8.
6.
And he had that great catch against Stribling, Christian Hackenberg in that 4 overtime game that sent it to that first overtime. What a great memory that was. I went there with one of my best friends, with my sister, who's a big fan of the Fith chapter. It was her first experience at Beaver Stadium, and it was an awesome experience, except for her because she was a Michigan fan.
I think he's got, talking about Allen Robinson, I think he's got that tattoo on, I don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
But Stribling's on the tattoo, right?
That's right. That was a great job of photography as well to catch that moment by whoever snapped that picture.
And some nice ink as well.
Yeah. All right, you ready to turn the page to the 5th chapter?
5th chapter already? Let's do it.
Yeah, and typically we do the major wager in the 5th chapter, but there was some non-sports news, a lot of non-sports news in the political realm that we had to get to this week. And it would be a dereliction of our duty to not cover this. And there's a lot, so bear with us. I mean, certainly you heard about what happened just hours after last Thursday's show when President Trump announced on Twitter that he had tested positive for COVID-19. Hours later on Friday evening, he took a chopper to Walter Reed Hospital and was hospitalized there for the weekend. It was the first time that a president has been hospitalized, I believe, since Reagan was shot. While he was there was a lot of lying and status, whether he received oxygen or not. And we still don't know when the last time Trump tested negative for coronavirus. People thought he was being tested daily, but they won't say whether he tested negative earlier in the day on Thursday or Wednesday or even Tuesday when he debated Joe Biden. Did he show up knowing that he was positive? We also know that it's not just President Trump or his wife Melania. There's a COVID-19 outbreak in the White House. A lot of the staff has been sent home, and a lot of people who have been at the White House recently, including former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, have tested positive, and he's, I believe, been hospitalized for several days. People are speculating, actually, that Mike Pence, who had that fly in his head, might have coronavirus because he had a little bit of a pink eye or red eye at the debate yesterday, and apparently 1 to 3% of people that have coronavirus also suffer from pink eye. That's a rare symptom. The Commission on Presidential Debates said earlier today that the second debate between Trump and Biden, which is scheduled to take place next week, is going to have to be virtual because Trump has Rona. But Trump said earlier today that he's going to refuse to do a virtual town hall debate. He wants to do it in person. So the future of debates is up in the air. We also have news on Big Gretch that we'll get to in just a moment. But Dennis, what do you think about all this coronavirus news and debate news regarding the White House?
Well, the Trump stuff felt like a bad movie. You know, you're watching it and you're like, well, this is kind of far-fetched. You know, the president of the White House getting the virus and everything else. But it was, I don't know, surreal. You use a lot of the pandemic. It was a weird 24 hours. You know, you'd get some tweets from Trump how he was doing okay, but then whatever news sources are coming out there saying this is a critical 8 hours for Trump, you know, with critical how, like he's going to die or what. So it was, it felt like it was touch and go for, one night there with Trump, which was crazy. And I don't know, you ever seen the movie? It's a comedy. It's called Dave. It's about the president. They switch the president out.
No, I haven't.
A great movie. I think I saw it as I may have been a substitute teacher and for a political science class.
Really?
They just had the VCR and we just played Dave, for all 6 hours it was a pretty easy day for me. Take the roll, everybody. Okay, Jackson. Okay, and then here's the movie. Put it in. But Dave has a look-alike. And he swapped it out for the president. He's in the White House. It felt a little bit when Trump was standing up there. I was looking close and is that really Donald Trump or is that an imposter that's up there? Because he's kind of breathing heavy. He always has that bright makeup on and everything. But
it's gotten darker.
I had to look. I thought maybe there was a computer generated or something. It was bizarre. So I don't know. It didn't seem like the White House and his extended group was taking everything seriously. You go back to, what was it? What do they call that? The convention, when they were all outside, they're all sitting right next to each other and everything. Yeah. Nobody's wearing a mask. And so, things like that are bound to happen.
Yeah, and certainly want to send prayers to President Trump and everybody that has been affected by the coronavirus in that White House outbreak and elsewhere. But, this is obviously why you have to wear masks and socially distance and not gather in groups. A lot of people are suggesting that the super spreader event that caused this was 2 weekends ago when they had an indoor and outdoor ceremony to nominate the new Supreme Court justice. And certainly you can get political and say, should it happen or should it not? We're not going to do that. But they could have either A, forced everyone to wear a mask and socially distance, sitting 6 feet apart from everybody at that ceremony, and do it outdoors, or B, nominate her without having a party. I mean, you don't have to have a party in order to do your duty as a politician and nominate someone to the Supreme Court. With regards to the debate, which looks like it's going to be off. I mean, there's no way that they should be having a debate with Trump and Biden in a town hall with regular American citizens in person. Less than 2 weeks after Trump admitted that he tested positive for coronavirus, because the first thing you're supposed to do, according to CDC guidelines, if you test positive, is to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that would mean that the end of his quarantine, the last day, would be a week from today, which would be the day of the debate. So they can't do that. It should be virtual if they're going to have it. Obviously, that makes it difficult because maybe the moderator will want to mute the candidates when they start interrupting each other, which they might not want. But you can't do that. You can't have somebody testing positive running around with a whole bunch of other people talking about policy, because he could infect everybody else there. That's irresponsible, and he could kill folks.
Yeah.
So I think they're done with debates. It's disappointing, but I think that they're either done or they're certainly not going to have the second debate. And then we've also got this really crazy story about Big Gretch, the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. The FBI arrested 6 people earlier today who are plotting to use their militia called the Wolverine Watchmen to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. There were also 7 others who were arrested and face state charges for this plot. And law enforcement officials said that they were planning to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer at her vacation home up north and take her to Wisconsin and put her on trial for treason. And we all know that the penalty for treason is the death penalty, so they were basically threatening to kidnap and kill her. They also identified the home addresses of several law enforcement officials with plans to target them. They wanted a civil war. They wanted to storm the state capitol. They wanted to take hostages. They wanted to plant an IED device on a bridge to blow it up to distract the police. And they'd already tested an IED device in Wisconsin. People throughout Metro Detroit were arrested, including in Shelby Township, Sterling Heights, Waterford, Canton, Belfield, and Clarkson. Dennis, what do you think about this foiled plot to kidnap the governor, potentially kill her, blow up a bridge, and more?
Well, it sounds like a bunch of terrorists, and not only from their towns. I'd like to see their faces splashed across everywhere, and all these people go to jail. Like what a ridiculous. What do these guys think? Like, there's terrorists. So we got a bunch of terrorists right here in Michigan that we're planning on kidnapping the governor. Great. Round them up, and let's see if we can use the full authority of the law. Get them behind bars, man. Like,
Yeah.
I know the militia, people love their guns, and they like to, get together and plan like they're gonna, in case something goes down. But I don't know. I think they either had one too many at a fire. What are they? Are they that upset not being able to go to the bowling alley and wear their masks?
Well, one of the things that they were upset about was not being able to go to the gym.
Yeah, look, I don't like not being able to go to the gym either. But it's a pandemic, you idiots.
Yeah, and you're not going to kidnap anybody or blow up a bridge over it. Yeah,
you're going to go to jail. You're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do, and you should go to jail. You can't act like you're going to act like a lunatic and a terrorist. You're going to get treated like one.
Yeah, you hate to think that something like this could happen in your own state, and it does happen, but it shows you the unfortunate amount of diversity that we have. And it also, surprisingly, was an interstate operation, because one of the 6 arrested by the FBI was from Delaware. So, to have some planning to try to execute this by the time the election in 26 days. I mean, it's a really sick plot. And to think about, like, if this had actually taken place, we wake up one day 2 weeks from now to find out a bridge in western Michigan has been blown up, or northern Michigan been blown up, multiple law enforcement officials have been killed, domestic terrorists have taken over the Capitol, the governor is nowhere to be found, and then you find out a day or two later she's been beheaded in rural Wisconsin. I mean, that would be the ultimate disastrous scenario. And I think they were also talking about doing this to other governors. So I'm glad that our law enforcement officials were able to to root this out, because that would have been just a tragedy beyond anything we've seen in this country.
You're right there, man. There's no way other to say it than that. Keith says Trump won't debate virtually because he knows his game is to interrupt, and that is part of it. I think the other part is everybody. I mean, there's certain aspect of it that's entertaining. It made my head hurt last time. I don't think anybody's changing their vote. With these two, we already know what's going on here. I don't think we need any more debates. So give one of them a half hour to stand there and talk, and give the other one a half hour to talk. And,
well, I know Biden.
There you go. Because last night, you know what? It didn't matter what question they asked him. Hey, what do you think of Michigan? I'll get to that, but first I wanted to talk about the weather. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, you go ahead and talk about the weather. I appreciate the question. Come on, that was a joke too. That was a joke. I
know Biden is planning to have his own town hall next week, as opposed to that. Trump perhaps could do his own virtual town hall, but yeah, you're not going to probably learn too much at this point anyway.
No, that's it, chap. Enjoy the football game tonight. You're going to have Tom Brady at Soldier Field taking on the Bears. Looking forward to that. And join us coming up on Tuesday's Fifth Chapter, because we'll be that much closer to the Big Ten football season starting. We'll talk about that, plus the Week 5 in the NFL. So for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. Thanks for watching here, the Fifth Chapter. We'll talk to you next week.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast, or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter.